So I'm going to talk today about how brands can kind of consistently plan for the moment, how they can really see the full potential of real-time marketing and do that through great content and smart targeting. Kevin's obviously talked about some of the new targeting capabilities, interest targeting, and then more recently, keyword targeting. And I guess the big sort of takeaway is that brands don't need to wait for the moment anymore. They can really plan for that moment. And hopefully I'll illustrate some of the ways that brands can actually do that. So we see everything getting faster. So, people want stuff on demand, they want stuff now, and everything is really trending to instant. And, one of the areas that's really being disrupted by that is news. Just last week on the passing of Baroness Thatcher, we saw a huge volume of tweets. We saw 1 million tweets within the first 3 hours, tens of thousands of tweets within the first couple of minutes. News really is getting faster. And just as another illustration of that, just want to show how that actually happened during the budget a couple of weeks ago. We're going to see news breaking in real time.
Today, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Chancellor joined Twitter. He could have got it all into 140 characters. Growth down, borrowing up, families hit, and millionaires laughing all the way to the bank. Hashtag downgraded Chancellor. Mr. Deputy Speaker, more of the same is not the answer to the problems of the last 3 years. More of the same is...
So I don't want to incite a riot, but I think it's fair to say that in that moment, Ed Miliband really captured that moment to good effect. We're also seeing fashion and trends get faster. Traditionally, the fashion industry was really defined by speed. It was defined by a 6-month shopping cycle. Along came Zara and their fast fashion model, and they really turned that on its head. So they were able to go from design to rack within 15 days. They were able to refresh designs twice a week. So we're seeing fashion and trends increasingly get faster. And that's having a bigger effect on culture. Ideas are spreading further and faster. And, from the profound to the less profound, we see memes bubbling away every single day. So one of my favorites was hashtag from 2 days ago, Kim Jong-un in a band. I don't know, we saw Fat Boy Kim. Don't know if anyone can guess. Anyone can guess what this is? It's Neil Jong. So just one kind of illustration of how culture is getting faster, the turnover is getting faster and faster. So at Twitter, we really think of the platform in this way. So we see it as the shortest distance between you and what interests you most. And clearly we're a platform where speed and distance are absolutely key to the experience. Within that, we're obviously seeing marketing and customer service being the speed of change having a big disruptive impact on that. So this kind of brings us on to real-time marketing. Obviously, lots has been written about real-time marketing. And the idea that as news gets faster, as culture gets faster, that brands have to take part in those real-time conversations to stay relevant. And we'll kind of explore that in a bit more detail. Now, one of the clear poster child of real-time marketing is Oreo. So I'm sure there's lots and lots of people in the audience that have read articles about Oreo. But just to kind of recap, a couple of months ago at the US Super Bowl, this is where Americans get together, show lots of ads, and throw a little bit of content in for good measure. And we saw a huge outpouring of tweets, so 24 million tweets in total. But within that, the unthinkable happened, and the lights in the stadium went out for 35 minutes. There were lots of tweets to fill that darkness. And one of my favorites, or personal favorites, was some people outside of the States actually getting confused about what the Super Bowl was, and actually started posting pictures of superb owls. This was a thing. This was a thing during the Super Bowl. Within a couple of minutes of the lights going out at the Super Bowl, Oreo tweeted this. So power out, no problem, you can still dunk in the dark. An incredibly simple tweet. It took them a few minutes to do, but it really captured that moment. They got 16,000 retweets, and arguably there was more conversation, discussion about this one tweet than any of the $1 million ad spots, including their own. So speed really won out for Oreo here. A little bit closer to home, Grand National, a little bit less glamorous. A couple of weeks ago, lots of people were talking about the Grand National. We saw around 350,000 tweets about it. Ironically, one of the few times when people tweeted less was actually, we'll see, as the horses approached the finishing line. To Bruce's point, it almost mirrored the shape of a drama program. As the horses got into the final furlong, people actually stopped tweeting. Presumably it's quite hard to tweet when you're going crazy, jumping around in your living room. And in my case, I was able to tweet because my horse had never been mentioned. And you see this surge that happens where people celebrate, commiserate, and really kind of take the conversation online. And within that moment, Kenko actually tweeted something that was even simpler than Oreo, and they tweeted this. Now, you know, as tweets go, it's effectively a tweet saying, I think you should buy some of our coffee and have a coffee. But because of the moment, it was really effective. They had hundreds of retweets, and I think they really captured the British sense of getting on after sporting defeat. Really kind of captured that moment. And unlike Oreo, they didn't have to have a war room of designers and strategists to come up with this. This was something they could plan in advance, they could plan for the moment and anticipate what was going to happen. Incidentally, our monarch probably needed a coffee. She wasn't too happy about how things went that day. So we kind of, at Twitter, we think that, you know, for all the talk of real-time marketing, what it actually does is miss a broader point. So it misses the broader point of what brands are actually trying to do, and namely that's to be highly relevant and to do that at speed and scale. Real-time marketing can be a way of doing that. Jumping on memes and trends can be a way of doing that, but it's the tip of the iceberg, and in many cases, it's the hardest way to do that. So we kind of see the opportunity around moments in real-time marketing to more be about, you know, how can you be relevant as a brand? And as Kevin has kind of alluded to, the two key signals that we think we're very unique in being able to understand are people's real-time interests and their real-time intent. And people share these signals, you know, every single day, from the mundane to the crazy. You really kind of betray the sort of the real you on Twitter. And just as kind of one illustration of that, I was minding my own business last Sunday, watching some TV and following along on Twitter. And I actually found out an awful lot about JLS. Now, it's fair to say that I don't know much about JLS, but I was quite surprised to see that JLS were on Countryfile. And they'd actually, it turns out that JB wants to be a farmer, plans to be a hill farmer, and that's his interest and that's his intent. And that evening, Countryfile was the 5th most talked about TV program. Yeah, hugely unusual for Countryfile, but those conversations on Twitter really kind of powered it in terms of the number of the volume of people talking about it. So when we think about real-time targeting, so real-time marketing, we kind of think the question that brands should be asking is this. So in this sea of real-time content, does your brand message consistently rise to the top? There are definitely things you can do around memes to get it to the top sometimes, but how do you get it there consistently, and how do you get it to stay there? Bruce has mentioned the planning book that we've produced. There'll be more coming in that space, but as a kind of a high-level overview, we kind of think there are 4 stages that allow any brand to anticipate the moment and really plan for those moments. So that's having an always-on strategy to interest and intent targeting. It's having, obviously, a great content calendar, scenario planning, you know, expect the best and the worst. These are some of the key opportunities. And then finally, you do have this opportunity to react in the moment, to do what Oreo did and really drive those bursts of relevance. Let's have a look at those in turn. So number 1, plan for everyday marketing moments. You know, these are things, there are so many things that you can plan for and anticipate every single day, whether that be through interest, through intent, or just looking at the TV schedule. So here's an example here for Kellogg's. So they regularly go after, or crave, regularly go after social TV moments, and by doing that, they tap into the audience, the really passionate fans around different TV programs. Here they're going after misfits, and it's just a really nice alignment between Twitter and TV, and something that every brand could do, and also something that every brand could plan for. Content's obviously hugely important. You know, we see it very much as the bridge between brands and individuals. But I guess the key message that we've seen on Twitter is that it doesn't all have to be really, really high production value. You know, if you're Red Bull Media House, fantastic. You send Felix Baumgartner into space, and that works incredibly well. But it isn't the only thing that works. Here's a lovely campaign from Doritos where they use Vine, they use the mariachi band as well, and they have a Name That Tune competition. A very simple mechanic, but one that people loved and people engaged with. Any guesses of what this tune is? Anyone? No? Yeah, it's Bjork. Of course it's Bjork. They had some great other ones I'd urge you to check out. And then coming back to Red Bull and Felix Baumgartner, if you can't do a huge stunt of that scale and cost, then the next best thing is actually to leverage it. And that's exactly what KitKat did. They knew it was coming up. They thought, you know, what does Felix need just before he's about to jump to Earth? He probably needs a KitKat. He needs, you know, he needs some sustenance. So they sent one into space. So third up is scenario planning. And I think this is something that brands are particularly interested in. You know, there are opportunities, positive things and negative things that happen to brands. And we would urge that these are probably some of the opportunities for brands to actually define themselves to the greatest extent. So, you know, the first thing you have to do is to really jump on and capitalize on the positive. And this is exactly what Burberry did following their London Fashion Week show. So, you know, they streamed the show on Twitter. People loved it. It was a beautiful, beautiful piece of content. But what they then did is go back to every single person that engaged with it and gave them this personalized gift. And it read Burberry Pour Some, and then it was had their @ handle on it. It was just a really nice, lightweight piece of content to reward fans. And this is kind of something that brands should be doing all the time. The moment you get a positive moment, that, you know, you definitely want to capitalize that. Now, from time to time, you know, things happen, shit happens. And I just want you to bear with me for a moment while I talk about Channel 4's Dogging Tales. We'll get on to brands, but for those not familiar with it, a lot of it was filmed in National Trust car parks, forests. People had a great time. And people on Twitter loved it. 118,000 tweets, and it trended. And, you know, everyone was tweeting about it. Hey, even The Wanted were tweeting about it from across the pond. They're in the States at the time, and they noticed that Dogging Tales was on TV. And in one particularly sort of creepy scene in Dogging Tales, we meet Dogger Les, and just a warning here, he's wearing an animal mask, and it's a little bit creepy, but there is a point to all of this. And he talks about his choice of cologne, you know, how he wants to smell when he's dogging. So I'm just going to play that now.
Linked?
Yeah, got to be linked.
Which one?
Links, I ain't got my glasses on. What does that say, Sue?
Final edition.
Yeah, it's the black one. Can't beat it. That and dupe. Brilliant.
So for those that couldn't hear that, he was saying that when dogging, you know, the only choice, I think Lynx is in the room, so, but there's a good happy ending to this story. And, you know, Alan Carr took a particularly keen interest in this program for some reason. And he tweets this, you know, it was, at this point you're thinking, what have Lynx done to deserve this, really? They had no say in this, and people are talking about them, and kind of them being the unofficial sponsors of the dogging fraternity. But, you know, fortunately, the crafty guys at TMW, who I believe are here, they tweeted this. So the next morning, crisis meetings all morning, you know, there's no crisis. And they turn it around very much to their own benefit. Are the guys from TMW here? I think they're here somewhere. Can't see. Oh, do you want to stand up? There they are. Always prepared. Always prepared. It's probably a good moment, actually, just to remind everyone that we're having drinks later, and we'd love you all to come. And, you could, you're all very, very welcome. Enough about that. And finally, they retweeted some of the best. God, wow. They retweeted some of the best content that people had sent them. I particularly like the Lynx dogging edition, and maybe we can discuss with Lynx later whether it ever sees the light of day. But, you know, the serious point here is that this was something they didn't really have to respond to. Nothing drastic would have happened, but by doing so, they really turned it around to their benefit. They got earned media reach. They kind of really got a place in the hearts of consumers. I think it was a really smart way of actually turning that particular moment around to their advantage. And that kind of leads us sort of full circle to the beginning of the presentation where, you know, we talked about everything getting faster, everything trending to instant, and there's no denying the fact that speed can be a huge differentiator. So we've seen a number of brands kind of get in on this act repeatedly. Innocent's a good one. So in the midst of the horse meat scandal, they tweet, no traces of horse in any of our products. Might find a bit of zebra though. Hang on, that's a barcode, no need to panic. A simple tweet, but one that really positioned their brand values and really kind of depositioned, I guess, potentially some competition that was more embroiled in the horse meat scandal. 3,000 retweets, a really nice in-the-moment tweet. And then Paddy Power, who will be speaking later, I think it's fair to say they rarely miss an opportunity to comment on what's going on in the world. They knew St. Patrick's Day was coming up, they could plan for that, and what do people want on St. Patrick's Day? They want a micro pig pushing a Guinness in a shopping trolley. It did incredibly well and really kind of captured that moment in a way that could easily be planned for. So we've covered a few things, but hopefully one of the key takeouts is that brands don't need to wait for the moment anymore. They can plan for it. They can plan for it in a number of different ways, whether it be through great content, whether it be through new targeting capabilities, keyword targeting being a great way to do that. And just want to finish on really how every single day on the platform these moments exist, these moments where brands can increase their relevance. So every tweet you send out creates a potential moment. Every campaign that you run online, offline, will be talked about. We've seen that in the TV example, so why not use that and amplify that experience? The TV schedule is a great way to actually tap into those moments and do that in a way that can be planned and really done in advance. And finally, your events, both your own and external events, all of these create moments that brands need not wait for. They can all plan for these moments. Thank you very much.